Welcome back. So I think I'm gonna be making a few changes here in terms of how I put these videos out. I've been doing one a day for the last 2 weeks now, and while time isn't really a factor, it's just it's a lot of work, and I want to make sure that I have enough content here to ride this thing out. It's it's not looking like we're gonna be out of this kind of shelter in place anytime soon. Washington, just a few miles away, is now up until May 4th is when the order's in place for. Oregon is sooner than that, but I won't be surprised if they extend it as well, since we're not supposed to hit our peak until early May or late April. So at the very least another month until we're on the downhill slope of this. And so because of that, I've made a few investments here. I don't know if you can tell, I bought a microphone for my camera. Finally got that in. So hopefully I sound a little bit better. It's less echoey in here. But also I want to make sure that I'm publishing content on a more regular cadence. So might reduce the amount of videos that I'm actually putting out, but hopefully they get a little bit better in terms of quality and the content itself. The other thing is that you might see me wear these same clothes more often than not, especially like this beanie. I was already due for a haircut when we were kind of all sent home, and now it's been another 3 weeks, and it's likely going to get quite a bit longer. I'm not at the point where I need to resort to cutting my own hair just yet, but I won't be surprised if we get there pretty soon. So all of that to say, long way of introducing this video, but something that I've had in the back of my mind, and really the back of my camera bag as well, are camera flashes. I came into photography when the whole strobist mindset or one light was really popular. People were really into these big fancy flashes that they had on their digital cameras that were also very big and fancy, and had strobe lights and studio lights, and everyone was packing everything everywhere, and you can buy batteries for them that are now way out of date in terms of battery technology. But I bought into the hype, and I had a flash myself that I would use and bring on certain photo shoots, especially for a lot of the automotive stuff that I was doing back then. But it was never really my style, never really stuck with me. And somehow, though, I've ended up with a couple of flashes that have carried with me for the better part of 7 or 8 years now. And they're cheap, and it might surprise people to hear what they are. So let's get into it. My favorite flash, the flash that I will throw into my camera bag if I feel like I'm going to need it for whatever reason, is the Vivitar 125. It's this guy right here. It's a straightforward flash. It's incredibly simple, and it's incredibly cheap. I bought this one at Goodwill a number of years ago, and it was $1. And actually, a couple years after that, I found another one that was also $1. So $2 for 2 flashes is a pretty decent deal. They're in similar condition in terms of just their appearance, but I mean, Vivitar made a million of these things, and they were a pretty standard basic flash. And I think I've been able to figure out why I like this style of flash so much, and kind of distill it into 5 reasons. So the first reason is weight. It weighs nothing. I mean, it's incredibly light, even with batteries in it. And I like that because it doesn't upset the balance of my Leica, which is the camera that I'll use a flash with more often than not. Normally that's just because anything bigger than this, any bigger cameras, I'm really not shooting at night, at least not handheld, but really rarely at night anyway. So when we consider the balance of the Leica, it's basically all metal. It sits really well in the palm of your hand, when you kind of make that cradle. And because of that, I don't want too much weight, too much pressure, too much I don't want the camera to be offset. And so when we look at one of these little flashes on here, it just sits in there really well. Again, the camera still feels good in your hand. It doesn't get in the way. And this actually brings me to the other flash that I want to talk about today, which is this guy. This is a Lomography Color Splash flash that I picked up also a number of years ago. I don't remember when. Also at a Goodwill. I think this one was $4, and it came with the box and manual. And I mean, in the same way that the Vivitar works, this one works really well. as well. And it actually, in some respects, works better with the Leica just because of how low profile it is. I'm going to get a little bit more red eye if that's the case, but I usually don't shoot flash with color. It's normally with black and white only. But a lot of the same features that I'm going to talk about with the Vivitar also apply to that color splash. Now, the second thing with any of these flashes is the size, and it plays into weight as well. But none of them are too bulky. I don't really feel guilty about tossing one of these in a camera bag, or if I'm wearing a big jacket or something, I can put it in the pocket. It's small, it fits in the palm of your hand, and that's one thing that I really remember about older flashes that I was using back in the day, is they were big, they were bulky. You know, they had all of these features to them, and you could do all this different stuff with the settings, and ultimately I never really used any of it. So if I'm not going to be using that anyway, why am I going to carry around that extra heft? And when you consider like how you're actually normally like wearing this camera, so to speak, you know, if it's sitting kind of on your chest like with a strap, you don't want anything that's kind of going to be pushing into you or getting in the way, or that you're going to be knocking with your arm. You know, once you get into those articulating heads, things start to protrude, and well, no, it has one direction. It's a flash. It goes towards the subject. That's all it really needs. And I think that gets me into my third topic, which is ease of use. Now, a flash like this has one, I think it's a guide number. I'll be honest, I don't use flashes enough to really know the terminology about them. What this has, though, is a simple dial on the back. All you'll do is you'll set the dial to whatever ISO film you have in the camera itself. And then when it comes time to actually take the photo, you just get a rough measurement of how far away you are from your subject, set your f-stop on your lens to the corresponding setting, and you're good. You're going to get a properly exposed subject every time. And I just love that about it. I don't really have to think about it. I know that it just works, and especially with a camera like this M6, which does not have TTL flash. Like I'm not going to be able to know anything about the metering anyway. So now I don't have to meter. I focus and compose my entire image entirely based around the subject. That's all that matters. The exposure is done for me because all of the light is provided by the flash. And when we consider like the other pieces of the Vivitar 125, it's got only one real button on it, which will fire the flash. It's got one switch on the back that's going to turn it on and off, and then it's got a little LED, not LED, but just a little light that tells you that the capacitors are charged. And granted, you can also hear when they kind of stop winding too, because these things are rather loud, just old circuitry in them. But all of that combined, you know, the old technology, the old circuitry, it means that they're cheap. Now, granted, I found this at Goodwill and paid $1 for it, but even if we look online, you can find these things brand new in box on eBay for just a couple of bucks. And I really appreciate that, and that's really what all of this boils down to, is that the reason that I pick so much of the photographic equipment that I use isn't necessarily out of the overall quality. And I know you might be thinking like, well, wait, you're using a Leica, they're supposed to be this top-notch thing or whatever. But the photo quality that the Leica gets me is honestly no better than what I would get out of a corresponding like Nikon. You can only, you know, your photos are only going to be aided so much by the equipment that you use. So you should use the equipment that works best for your workflow. I like the Leica because I know that I can get this repaired. I talked about this a bit in the video I posted the other week about owning this camera for a decade now. I've sent it to Leica to have it fixed. I know that I'll be able to do that exact same thing basically into perpetuity for as long as I own this camera. And it's that longevity that I really appreciate it, more so than the lenses or how the camera functions or anything like that. It's a peace of mind. On the flip side, when it comes to a flash like this, or really any flash in general, I know that this thing's going to work forever because of how simple it is. There's no computers inside of it. There's no real complex circuitry. Granted, it's a little bit older circuitry, but it's gonna work. And even if it doesn't, it's cheap enough that I can find another one and not be too fussed about it. And you can really see that when you look at like the bottom of it as well. You know, you don't have all of these other sensors that communicate between the camera and the flash. It's just one single metal little receiver that says, hey, the shutter's been fired, it's time for me to shoot off the flash, and that's it. And once you consider that, it's a kind of a peace of mind to know that like you don't really have to worry about this thing. And that lack of worry is what really brings me to my last point, which is the batteries that they use. Now, both of the flashes that I've talked about, both the Vivitar 125 and then also the Lomography Color Splash, use AA batteries. This has one, this has two. But I love that it's a basic battery. You know, it's a AA. You can buy them anywhere. If your batteries run out, you can go into a convenience store and pick up a small box. You'll probably overpay, but they'll be there. It's not using anything weird like a CR123A or a CR2 or anything like that. And it's not using a ton of them either. You know, the big flash that I used to have, the Canon 4 something, I don't honestly remember what it is. It used 4-6 batteries. It was a lot. It was a lot of AA batteries. And so when you're carrying that big flash around, you're now carrying extra batteries around because it used more batteries and it ate them up faster. And it's just bulk begets bulk begets bulk. It just all compiles on itself. And the thing I would realize, because I've had my same camera bag this whole time, I've had it for more than a decade, is that you start running out of room very quickly. So the smaller you can keep your equipment, the more compact, for me anyway, the better. So that's my methodology on flashes and why I like the flashes that I like. Again, I use the Vivitar 125 and rarely the Lomography Color Splash, but you can use anything. If it's small and it's simple, that's what works for me. I don't know, maybe it'll work for you if you've been thinking about what flash to buy. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for putting up with, you know, my kind of weird ramblings at the beginning of all of these videos as I kind of figure out for myself what's going on, and what I'm really doing during this weird time. But your comments, your likes, you subscribing, it really means a lot to me. So thank you a bunch. Hopefully I'll be able to get some more time and change the subject up here a little bit on these videos. But until next time, I'll see you around.